All. In a small village in the hills of Galilee, in the cool of an evening that had been given over entirely to joy. The sound of music and laughter drifted out over the rooftops, and a wedding feast was in full and happy swing. There was the stamp of dancing feet on packed earth, the clapping of hands, the bright voices of children weaving through the crowd. The long tables crowded with family and friends and neighbors who had come from all around to celebrate. A young couple had been married, and in that time and place a wedding was not a single evening, but a celebration that could go on for days. A great outpouring of gladness for a whole community, and on this night the village of Cana was full of it. Full of light and warmth, and the deep, simple happiness of people gathered to bless two lives just beginning together. Hello there, friend, and welcome. However your own day has gone, whatever weight you have carried into this night, you can begin now to set it gently down. You do not have to do anything here, but rest. You can let your shoulders soften, let your breathing slow, and let yourself be carried for a little while into the warmth and music of a village wedding long ago, into a night of celebration that was about to become something far more than anyone there expected. For tonight our story is a gladder one than some we have told, a story of a feast and a quiet kindness. And the very first time, the man at the center of all our stories let a little of his hidden glory shine out into the world. He chose to let it shine, of all places, at a country wedding, to spare an ordinary family an ordinary sorrow. This is one more night on the long journey we are walking together, you and I, through the oldest and truest stories ever told. We have spent these evenings getting to know the people whose lives were touched and turned by a man from Nazareth, the towns, and along the shores of Galilee. We sat with a woman found in her darkness and called by name. We watched a day of rest reveal the hearts of a whole town. We spent a gentle afternoon among children gathered into welcoming arms. And only recently, we stood in a fishing boat at dawn and watched a weary man called to leave his nets and follow. Tonight that little band of new followers comes with their teacher to a wedding, and there, mid the music and the dancing, something will happen that opens the door to everything that is to come. If these quiet journeys are a comfort to you at the close of your day, you are welcome to stay near and follow along. And if you feel like it, you might leave a soft tap on the like button before you drift off. Since I am told it rests easier when someone remembers it. Now, let us go back to the village of Cana and to the joy of that wedding night. But before we step fully into the feast, let us pause for a moment on one particular guest, woman moving quietly among the celebration, because she is at the very heart of what is about to happen. She was the mother of the teacher from Nazareth, a woman named Mary, and she had come to Cana, as women did, to help with the great labor of a wedding, the cooking and the serving, and the 1,000 small tasks that a celebration of that size required. She was no stranger to the family. She had come to lend her hands and her care to people she loved on one of the happiest days of their lives. And she carried within her, as she moved among the tables, something that none of the other guests carried, a long and quiet knowledge about her own son that she had been holding in her heart for many years. Joe. For this was a woman who, the old accounts tell us, kept things in her heart and pondered them. From the very beginning of her son's life, strange and wonderful things had surrounded him. Words spoken over him, signs given, mysteries she did not fully understand. And through all the long, ordinary years that followed, the years of childhood and youth and quiet work in Nazareth, oh, she had held those things close, turning them over in the silence of her heart, watching, waiting, wondering what they meant and when their meaning would unfold. She knew, in a way no one else at that wedding knew, that her son was no ordinary man. She had known it in some deep and patient way since before he was born. And she had waited all these years with the long patience of a mother who keeps a secret too large to speak, for the time when the world would finally see what she had always known. There is something tender in that, in the picture of a mother who has carried a great knowledge quietly for a lifetime, who has watched her child grow with a love mixed with wonder, who has kept her counsel and bided her time and trusted that the right moment would come. And on this wedding night in Cana, though no one else could have guessed it, that long waiting was about to end. The quiet years were drawing to a close. A small crisis was gathering, unseen beneath the music and the laughter. An ordinary embarrassment about to fall upon an ordinary family, and it would become, in the hands of her son, the occasion for the very first sign of who he truly was. The mother who had kept everything in her heart was about to see the first of it brought out into the light. It would begin, as so much in this story begins, not with thunder, but with a quiet word spoken between a mother and her son. There is a reason to begin a story like this gently, with music and lamplight, rather than with the great events that would follow. And it is worth saying, for the road that opened at this wedding would lead in time to hard and heavy places, or to opposition and sorrow, and at the very end to a cross. But it began here in joy. It began at a celebration among ordinary people in the warmth of a village, glad to gather and bless a young couple. There is something fitting in that, something that tells us about the one whose work was beginning. The great and costly mission did not start in gloom or grim resolve. It started at a feast, in the service of joy, with a quiet act of kindness meant to keep a celebration whole. Whatever else this story holds, let it begin where it truly began, in gladness, with the sound of dancing and the smell of bread and the happiness of a wedding night in the hills of Galilee. So settle into that warmth as we begin. Let the cares of your own day grow quiet, the way the cares of the village had grown quiet for the sake of the celebration. Let yourself be one of the guests at the long tables, caught up in the simple happiness of the night, with no idea yet of the wonder that was gathering quietly at the edges of the feast. For that is how it was. For nearly everyone there, they came to celebrate a wedding, and they had no notion that they were about to be present at the very first sign of something that would change the whole world. The greatest moments often come disguised as ordinary ones. And this one came disguised as a country wedding full of music on an ordinary evening that was about to become anything but ordinary. To understand the story that is about to unfold, it helps to understand what a wedding meant in that time and place, because it was far more than the single ceremony we might picture today. A wedding in ancient Galilee was one of the great events of village life, a celebration that gathered a whole community and went on, often, for as much as a week. There would be a procession and feasting and music and dancing and the constant flow of food and wine, and the whole village would be caught up in it, the rich and the poor alike, for days on end. It was a time when ordinary life, with all its hardship and labor, was set aside, and the people gave themselves over to pure celebration, The joy of two lives joined and a new family begun. Odd. For a community that knew so much weariness and want, a wedding was a precious and shining thing, a long draught of gladness in a hard world. And the hosts of such a feast carried a heavy responsibility, the responsibility of hospitality, which in that culture was no small matter. To host a wedding was to provide for all those guests, to feed them and pour for them, and keep the celebration going through all its days, and to do so generously without running short. Hospitality was a sacred duty and a point of deep honor. Or, to welcome guests, well, to provide for them lavishly, was to uphold the honor of your family and your name. And to fail at it, to run short, to be unable to provide what the celebration required, was a humiliation that could follow a family for years, a public shame that the whole village would remember and speak of. The stakes of a wedding feast, then, were higher than they might appear. Beneath the joy ran a current of real pressure, the pressure to provide, to honor the guests, to keep the celebration whole. At the center of the feast, and central to all that joy, was the wine. In that culture, wine was not a luxury or an indulgence, but an essential part of any celebration, a sign of gladness, of blessing, of the goodness of life. A feast without wine was no feast at all. The wine flowed at weddings as a symbol of the joy of the occasion, of God's blessing on the new couple, of the abundance and sweetness that everyone hoped their life together would hold. To pour wine for your guests was to pour out joy itself, to share in the gladness of the celebration. And so the wine was not incidental to the wedding, it was woven into its very meaning. It was the gladness made visible, the blessing made tangible, the joy of the feast poured into every cup. Which is exactly why the crisis that was quietly gathering at this particular wedding was such a serious thing. Most of the guests had no idea it was coming. For somewhere in the midst of the celebration, as the feast went on, and the cups were filled and emptied and filled again, the wine was running low. Perhaps more guests had come than were expected. Perhaps the celebration had gone on longer, or the drinking been merrier than anyone had planned for. We are not told the cause, only the fact, the quiet and creeping disaster that those responsible for the feast must have seen approaching with growing dread. Wine was running out, and to run out of wine at a wedding in that culture was not a small inconvenience. It was a catastrophe of honor, a public humiliation that would shame the host family before the whole village and be remembered for years to come. Picture the quiet panic of it beneath the surface of the celebration. The music plays on, the dancing continues, the guests laugh and feast with no idea that anything is wrong. But behind the scenes, among those responsible for the feast, there is a dawning horror. The wine is almost gone. There is not enough to finish the celebration, and there is nothing to be done about it. No shop to run to, no quick solution, only the slow and certain approach of the moment when the cups will run dry, and the shame will become public, and the joy of the feast will curdle into the family's lasting humiliation. It is a particular kind of helplessness to see a disaster coming and have no power to stop it, or to watch the wine sink lower and lower in the jars and know that there is nothing you can do. There is something deeply human in that small crisis, something that connects this ancient wedding to our own lives, for all the difference of time and place. Because we all know what it is to face a moment when our own resources run out, when we have given all we have and it is not enough, when some need presses upon us that we simply cannot meet by ourselves. it need not be wine at a wedding. It may be money that will not stretch to the end of the month, or strength that will not last to the end of the task, or love that feels too thin for the demands upon it, or hope that is running as low as the wine in those jars. Or the particular shape of our shortfall hardly matters. What matters is the feeling of it, the helplessness of having come to the end of what we can provide, with the need still unmet and no solution in sight. That was the situation at Cana, beneath all the music and the joy. Wine was running out, and into that quiet gathering crisis, a mother was about to carry a need to her son. Omen, it is worth dwelling a moment longer on the weight of hospitality in that world, because it is hard for us, at a different time, to feel how serious it truly was. To invite guests was to take responsibility for them, to make a kind of promise that they would be cared for, or fed, honored, given everything the celebration required. The honor of the whole family rested on how well that promise was kept. Or a wedding was watched by the entire village, remembered and talked about for years. To host it generously was to lift up the family's name, to fall short was to stain it, or perhaps for a generation. So when the wine began to fail, it was not merely an awkward moment. It was the threatened collapse of the family's honor, a public failure that the whole community would witness and remember. The stakes were high in a way that pressed on the chest of everyone who knew what was happening. And there is a deeper poignancy in it when we remember who tends to host such feasts. A village wedding was not the celebration of the wealthy and the powerful who could command endless resources. It was, more often, the great and costly effort of ordinary families who had saved and borrowed and stretched themselves to give their children a worthy beginning, who had poured out much of what they had to host the village well. For such a family, running out of wine was not just shame but the failure of a sacrifice, or the collapse of something they had given everything to provide. And it was exactly such a family, humble and stretched and doing their best, that the Lord chose to help with his very first sign. He did not rescue the celebration of the rich, he rescued the costly, fragile joy of ordinary people who had given all they had. There is one more thing worth feeling about that gathering shortage before we move on, because it is the thing that makes the story matter to us. The crisis was invisible to almost everyone. The guests danced on, happy and unaware, while a few people behind the scenes carried a growing dread that no one else could see. And is that not how so many of our own troubles are? We move through our days among people who have no idea what we are quietly carrying, the lack we are afraid to name, the shortage we are desperately trying to hide, the fear that the wine of our own lives is running low, while everyone around us assumes that all is well. The hosts at Cana smiled at their guests and hid their panic, and many of us know exactly how that feels. Keep the celebration going on the surface, while underneath we wonder how we will make it to the end. It is to exactly that hidden place, the secret shortage behind the public smile, that the Lord quietly came. He did not wait to be announced. He moved toward the hidden need and met it, before it could become a public shame. It was Mary who noticed, of course it was, for a mother who has spent her life caring for others, who has helped with countless tasks and seen countless feasts, would be among the first to sense that something was wrong. To read the quiet panic on the faces of those serving, to understand, before most of the guests, that the wine was failing. And when she understood it, she did not panic, and she did not go to confront the hosts. She did not make a scene. Or she did the one thing that her whole life had prepared her to do. She went to find her son. We are not told exactly where she found him, only that she came to him, there, in the midst of the celebration, with the new disciples who had come with him gathered nearby. And the words she spoke to him were simple, just 4 small words. And yet they carry within them one of the most beautiful pictures of trust in all of Scripture. "Oh, they have no wine," she said. That was all. She did not tell him what to do. She did not demand a miracle. She did not lay out a plan or insist on a particular solution. She simply brought the need to him and laid it before him and trusted him with it. "I have no wine," as if to say, "I see this trouble and I do not know what can be done. But I am bringing it to you because I know that you care and I trust you to do what is right." There is a whole way of praying hidden in those 4 small words, and it is worth pausing over, because it is a model for how we might bring our own troubles to God. Mary did not come with demands or instructions. She did not tell her son how to fix it, or when, or in what way. She simply named the need, honestly and simply, and placed it in his hands and left the rest to him. "They have no wine." It is the prayer of a trusting heart, the prayer that says, "Here is the trouble. I bring it to you. I do not need to tell you what to do. I trust you." How different that is from the way we often pray, with our long lists of demands and our detailed instructions to God about exactly how we want things solved. Mary teaches us another way, the way of simply bringing the need, openly and trustingly, leaving the solution in hands far wiser than our own. Her son's answer, at first, seems strange, even like a gentle refusal. "Woman," he said, "why do you involve me? My hour has not yet come." Now, the word he used, which can sound abrupt to our ears, was in fact a term of respect in that time and place, not cold but courteous, and yet his meaning seems at first to hold her back. "My hour has not yet come," for he understood something that she may only have sensed, that to step forward now, to do something openly that revealed his hidden power, would be to begin something that could not be undone. It would be to step out of the quiet, ordinary life he had lived for 30 years and into his public mission, a mission that would lead, in time, down a long road to a cross. His hour, the great hour toward which his whole life was moving, had its own appointed time. And to perform a public sign now would be to set his foot upon that road, to begin the journey toward everything that was to come. So there is a weight in his words, a sense of the enormity of what even this small act would set in motion. You, as no one else there could know, that the moment he let his glory show, even a little, even to spare a family an embarrassment, the quiet years would be over, and the long road to his hour would begin. Perhaps there was a moment of holy hesitation in it, the pause of one who stands at the threshold of his life's great work and feels the full weight of stepping across. My hour has not yet come. It is one of those moments in the story where we glimpse the cost of what he came to do. He carried, of where his path would lead, the awareness that every step forward was a step toward the sacrifice at the end. And yet, watch what his mother does, because it is one of the most quietly remarkable acts of faith in all the Gospels. She does not argue with him. She does not press her case or explain why he should help. Or she does not even respond directly to what he has said. She simply turns to the servants nearby, the ones who would be needed if anything were to be done, and she says to them 5 words that reveal the depth of her trust. Or do whatever he tells you, that is all. Do whatever he tells you. She had brought the need to her son. Now, having brought it, she simply trusted him completely. So completely that she instructed the servants to be ready to obey him. Odds, certain that he would act, certain that his compassion would not let this family fall into shame, or certain that whatever he asked them to do, however strange it might seem, it would be the right thing to do. There is a lesson in those words that reaches across all the centuries, a lesson for every heart that has ever brought a need to God and then wondered what to do next. Do whatever he tells you. Having brought the trouble to him, having placed it in his hands, next thing, the only thing, is to trust and to obey, to do whatever he says, even when it does not seem to make sense. Even when the connection between his instructions and the solution we long for is not clear at all. Mary did not know how her son would solve the problem. She did not need to know. She simply trusted him and told the servants to obey him and stepped back, not left the rest to him. And in doing so, she opened the door for the very first sign of his glory to shine out into the world. But it would come, as we will see, through the most ordinary of objects and the most surprising of instructions. It would turn the water of an ordinary day into the wine of pure joy. There is a depth in those 4 words, "They have no wine," that rewards a little more lingering. Because of all the things Mary might have said, she said the simplest. She did not catalogue the crisis or rehearse its dangers. Or she did not say, "The family will be shamed, the village will talk, something must be done at once." She simply named in the plainest possible way the bare fact of the lack. They have no wine. And in that plainness there is a kind of perfect trust, the trust that does not need to explain itself or argue its case, or that simply lays the trouble down before one who can be relied upon to understand and to care. It is the way a child brings a hurt to parent, holding out the wound without a speech, knowing that the love on the other side will know what to do. Mary brought the need that way, bare and unadorned, and left it in her son's hands. And it is worth noticing that she brought a need that was not even her own. The wine was not hers to provide. The shame, had it come, would not have fallen on her. She had no responsibility for the feast and no obligation to fix it. She simply saw a trouble coming on people she loved, and she carried it to her son out of compassion, interceding for others who did not even know their need was being carried. There is something beautiful in that. A picture of how love notices the troubles of others and quietly carries them to the one who can help. Mary was not asking for herself. She was standing in the gap for a family about to be shamed, bringing their need to her son before they had even thought to ask. And perhaps that too is a model for us to carry the troubles of others as she did, quietly, compassionately, trusting them into hands far more capable than our own. Nearby, standing against a wall or set in a corner of the courtyard, were 6 large jars made of stone, and they would become the unlikely vessels of the miracle. These were not ordinary jars for wine or oil. They were stone water jars, set there for the Jewish rites of purification, the ceremonial washings that the law and custom required. Before a meal, and at many points throughout daily life, the people would pour water from such jars over their hands and their vessels, in the ritual washings that mark them as a people set apart, a people concerned with cleanness before God. The jars were large, each one able to hold 20 or 30 gallons of water, great stone vessels standing ready for the endless ceremonial washings of a wedding feast full of guests. There is a quiet meaning in the fact that it was these jars, of all the vessels at the wedding, that the Lord would use, and it is worth pausing to notice it. For these were the jars of the old way, the vessels of ritual and law, of washing and purification, or of the careful religious observance that the people had kept for centuries. They stood for the entire system of rules and rites by which the people sought to be clean before God, a system that had grown heavy and complicated over the years, full of careful washings and precise observances. And it was into these very jars, the vessels of the old and careful religion, that the Lord was about to pour something entirely new. There is a picture in that, a quiet sign of what he had come to do, to take the water of the old way, rules and the rituals, and the endless striving to be clean, and to transform it into the new wine of joy and grace and abundant life. But the servants did not know any of that yet. They knew only that the mother of the teacher had told them to do whatever he said. Now here he was, this teacher from Nazareth, giving them an instruction that must have seemed utterly beside the point. Fill the jars with water, he told them. Fill the great stone water jars to the brim. Imagine how strange that command must have sounded to servants who knew that the crisis was a shortage of wine. The wine was running out, and the guests would soon be shamed, and here was this man telling them to fill the washing jars with water. What possible good could that do? Water in the purification jars would solve nothing. It would not produce a single drop of the wine they so desperately needed. The instruction seemed to have no connection at all to the problem at hand. And yet the servants obeyed. This is the quiet heart of the miracle, easy to overlook, but worth dwelling on. They obeyed, despite the strangeness of the command, despite the fact that it seemed to have nothing to do with the actual need, despite every reason to think it pointless. They did what they were told. Perhaps they remembered the woman's words, "Do whatever he tells you." Perhaps there was something in the teacher's manner that drew their obedience. Whatever the reason, they took up the water and they filled the great stone jars, all 6 of them, to the very brim, carrying the water and pouring it in until each enormous vessel was full. It was a great labor, filling 6 jars that each held 20 or 30 gallons, and they did it without understanding why, simply because they had been asked. God. There is something here that speaks to the very nature of faith, and it is worth taking to heart in your own life. For faith, so often, is exactly this, the willingness to do what we are asked, even when we cannot see how it could possibly help, even when the instruction seems disconnected from the outcome we long for. The servants could not see how filling washing jars with water would produce wine. The connection made no sense, but they obeyed anyway, and in their obedience they took part in a miracle. So often, the things God asks of us seem, in the moment, to have no obvious connection to the solution we are seeking. Fill the jars with water, he says, when what we want is wine. And we are left to choose whether we will obey the strange instruction, trusting that he knows what he is doing, or whether we will hold back because we cannot see how it could possibly work. The servants chose to obey, and because they did, they were there to witness and to take part in the very first sign of his glory. So the 6 great jars stood full, brimming with ordinary water, water for washing, water that could do nothing to save the feast. The servants had done the strange thing they were asked. They had filled the jars, everyone to the top, and now they waited, surely puzzled, surely wondering what on earth this could accomplish, watching to see what the teacher would do next. The crisis was still real, the wine was still gone, the shame was still gathering, and all they had to show for their labor was 6 jars of water where wine was needed. But everything was about to change, quietly, almost imperceptibly, in a way that most of the wedding would never even notice. For the water in those jars was not going to stay water. And the next instruction the teacher gave would reveal what had happened, in a moment so understated, so free of spectacle, that it is one of the most beautiful things in all the Gospels. It is worth picturing those stone jars more closely, because they were a familiar sight in every devout home, and their very ordinariness is part of the wonder. They were heavy, rough-hewn vessels of stone, chosen for the rites of purification, because stone, unlike clay, was thought not to contract ceremonial uncleanness, and so could be trusted to hold water that was ritually pure. They stood in the courtyards and entryways, ready for the washing of hands and cups and the many cleansings that the careful keeping of the law required. They were not beautiful, they were not special, they were the plain, functional vessels of daily religious life, as unremarkable as a basin by a door. These were the vessels the Lord chose, not golden cups, not sacred temple vessels, but the ordinary stone jars of household washing. He has a way of choosing the plain and the overlooked to carry his glory, of filling the most ordinary vessels with the most extraordinary gifts. And there is a quiet dignity given to the servants in this story that we should not pass over. For they are easy to forget, and yet without them there would have been no miracle to witness. They were the lowest people at the feast, the ones who carried and poured and labored unseen, while the guests danced. And it was to them, not to the master of the feast or the honored guests, that the secret of the miracle was first entrusted. They knew before anyone what had happened, because they had done the filling and the drawing out. The Lord let the humble servants be the first to share his secret, the first to carry the miracle in their hands. It is so like him to entrust the greatest things to the lowliest people, to let the servants be the ones who know. If you have ever felt unseen in your labor, overlooked in your faithfulness, remember the servants of Cana, who poured the water and carried the wine, and were the first, after the Lord himself, know what had been done. And we should let ourselves feel the strangeness of the obedience, because it is the very thing the story turns on. To fill those jars was no small task. Each held 20 or 30 gallons, and there were 6 of them. The water had to be carried, jar by jar and trip by trip, from the well or the cistern, or poured in until every great vessel was full to the brim. It was heavy, sweating labor, and all of it in service of a command that, on its face, made no sense at all. The wine was gone, and they were hauling water. Anyone watching might have thought it foolish. The servants themselves must have wondered. And still they did it, fully, to the brim, holding nothing back. There is a wholeheartedness in that obedience that matters. They did not half fill the jars, hedging their effort against their doubt. They filled them completely, committing fully to an instruction they did not understand. It was into that full and wholehearted obedience that the miracle came. Half-filled jars would have meant half the wine. They gave the strange command everything, and received back an abundance. And then the teacher gave his next instruction, and it was, if anything, even stranger than the first. "Now, draw some out," he told the servants, "and take it to the master of the feast." Or, the master of the feast was the one in charge of the celebration, the one responsible for the food and the wine, the one whose task it was to taste and approve what was served to the guests. And the teacher was telling the servants to draw something out of those water jars, the jars they had just filled with ordinary water for washing, and carry it to this man to taste. Imagine the servants' hesitation. They had filled the jars with water. They had watched it poured in with their own hands. Now they were being told to draw it out and serve it, as if it were wine, to the very man whose job it was to judge the quality of the wine. Or to do so was to risk looking like fools, or worse, serving plain washing water to the master of the feast and being humiliated for it. And yet, once more they obeyed. They dipped into the jar and drew out a cupful of what they had every reason to believe was water, and they carried it, perhaps with trembling hands and pounding hearts, to the master of the feast. And here the miracle reveals itself, not with a flash of light or a clap of thunder, but in the simplest and most understated way imaginable. For the master of the feast took the cup, and he drank from it, and what he tasted was not water at all. It was wine. Not just any wine, but wine of the finest quality, rich and fragrant and excellent, or better than anything that had been served all night. Somewhere between the filling of the jars and the drawing out of the cup, quietly, invisibly, without a word of command or a gesture of power that anyone recorded, the water had become wine. Ordinary had become the extraordinary. The vessels of the old washing had been filled with the new wine of joy. Sit for a moment with how quietly it happened, because the quietness is part of its beauty. There was no spectacle. The teacher did not stand before the crowd and announce what he was about to do. He did not wave his hands over the jars or speak grand words or call attention to himself in any way. The guests dancing and feasting in the courtyard had no idea that anything had happened at all. Master of the feast himself did not know where the wine had come from. Miracle was almost hidden, worked in the quiet, witnessed by only a few, accomplished without display. And there is something deeply characteristic of the Lord in that quietness, in his choosing to work this first great sign not as a public spectacle, but as a hidden kindness, or a gift given so unobtrusively that most of those who benefited from it never even knew it had been given. The master of the feast, knowing nothing of where this excellent wine had come from, called the bridegroom over. What he said is one of the small, delightful touches in the whole account. Everyone, he said, serves the good wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had plenty to drink and can no longer tell the difference. But you, he said, you have saved the best wine until now. He meant it as a compliment and a gentle surprise, for it was backwards from the usual way of things. Normally, a host served the finest wine at the beginning, while the guests could appreciate it, and brought out the lesser wine later. But here, at the end of the feast, when the wine should have been running thin and poor, the very best had appeared. The master of the feast did not understand it. He only knew that, somehow, the finest wine of the whole celebration had been kept for last. And there is a beauty in that small detail that goes far beyond the wedding at Cana. A picture of the way the Lord works that is worth carrying in your heart. For the world so often gives its best first and leaves us with less and less as time goes on. The world's joys tend to fade, its pleasures to grow thin, its early sweetness to give way to disappointment. But the Lord works the other way. He saves the best for last. He takes the places where we have run dry, where our own wine has failed, where we are left with nothing but the plain water of a depleted life, and He brings, out of that very emptiness, a new and better wine than we had at the beginning. Or, with Him, the best is always yet to come. The story does not run down toward disappointment, but up toward a joy greater than anything that came before. He had kept the good wine until now, and He keeps it still for all who bring their emptiness to Him. So the feast was saved, and the family was spared their shame, and the celebration went on, merrier than ever, with the finest wine flowing freely, and almost no one there had any idea what had happened or who had done it. The dancing continued, the laughter rang out. The joy of the wedding, which had been about to curdle into humiliation, was instead restored and deepened and crowned with the best wine of all. In the midst of it, only a few knew the truth. The servants knew, who had filled the jars and drawn out the wine. The new disciples knew, who had watched it all, and His mother knew, the woman who had brought the need to Him and trusted Him completely, who had said, "Do whatever He tells you," and then stepped back and watched her son begin, at last, to show the world a little of what she had known about Him all along. It was the first sign, and it had been given quietly, to save a wedding. It is worth noticing, too, that the Lord did not even touch the wine, as far as the account tells us. He spoke no incantation over the jars, made no show of power, did not so much as lay a hand on the water as it became wine. He simply gave instructions: fill the jars, draw some out, and somewhere in the obeying of those plain commands, the transformation occurred, unseen, between one moment and the next. The miracle happened in the space of trust and obedience, in the gap between the command and the carrying out of it. The servants did the ordinary thing they were asked, and in the doing of it, the extraordinary quietly came to pass. There is a pattern in that worth holding on to. So often the wonder does not come in a flash we can point to, but quietly, in the midst of our simple obedience, discovered only afterward, when we draw out the cup and find that what was water has become wine. And think of the moment the master of the feast lifted the cup to his lips, knowing nothing, expecting water or expecting nothing at all, and tasted instead the finest wine of the night. He had no idea what he was drinking, no idea of the wonder he held in his hand. Simply tasted goodness where he expected none, and was surprised by joy. Is that not so often how grace comes to us as well? Unannounced, unexplained, a sudden goodness where we expected only the ordinary or the empty. We lift the cup of an ordinary day and find, to our surprise, that it has been filled with something better than we knew. Master of the feast drank a miracle and called it merely good wine. How many of the good gifts in our own lives, we may wonder, are quiet miracles we have simply mistaken for ordinary blessings? Let us linger now on the meaning of what happened at that wedding, because this first sign was rich with meaning, and the more we ponder it, the deeper it goes. Consider, first, what the Lord chose to transform. He took water, plain and ordinary water, most common substance in all the world, the water of daily washing, and He turned it into wine, rich and rare and full of joy. And in that transformation, there is a whole picture of what He had come to do. For the water in those jars stood for the old way, the way of rules and rituals, of careful washing and endless striving to be clean. a way that had grown heavy and joyless over the centuries, full of obligation and short on gladness. And the wine he made from it stood for something entirely new. The joy and the abundance and the grace that he had come to bring. A new life that would replace the old striving, the celebration that would replace the mere observance. This is why it matters so much that he chose these particular jars, the jars of purification, the vessels of the old religious washing. He did not bring in new jars. He took the very vessels of the old way and filled them with the new wine. And in that quiet act, there was a sign of the whole of his mission, a sign that he had not come to abolish what was old, but to fulfill it, to take the water of law and ritual and longing and transform it into the wine of joy and grace and life. The old way had been about washing the outside, about rules and observances, about the endless effort to make oneself clean. The new way he brought was about transformation from the inside, about joy poured out as a gift, about a gladness that no amount of careful washing could ever have produced. Water into wine, the old made new, the empty made full, the plain made glad, and consider, the abundance of it, for that is part of the meaning as well. Those 6 great jars held a vast quantity of water, well over 100 gallons in all. The Lord did not produce just enough wine to get the feast politely through to its end. He produced an enormous abundance of it, far more than the wedding could possibly need, and all of it of the finest quality. There is a lavishness in that, a generosity that overflows all measure, and it tells us something about the heart of the one who made it. He does not give grudgingly or in careful, measured amounts. He gives abundantly, extravagantly, far more than we need or could even use. The joy he brings is not a thin trickle but a flood. Grace he pours out is not a careful ration but an overflowing abundance. He filled those jars to the brim and beyond, and in doing so he showed the boundless generosity of a God whose gifts are always more than enough. But perhaps the most striking thing of all about this first sign is where the Lord chose to give it, and to whom. Think about it. This was his first public miracle, the first time he let his hidden glory shine out into the world. He might have chosen to begin with something grand and unmistakable, a sign performed in the temple before the great crowds, or before the rulers and the powerful, a display that would have announced his arrival to the whole nation in unmistakable terms. But he did not. He chose, for his very first sign, to help an ordinary family at a country wedding, to spare them an ordinary embarrassment, to keep a village celebration from ending in shame. He worked his first miracle not for the great and the powerful, but for a humble family in a small town, not to make a grand point, but simply out of compassion, to meet a real and human need. There is something profoundly revealing in that choice, something that tells us volumes about the kind of God we are dealing with. He cares about the small things. He cares about an ordinary family's embarrassment at an ordinary wedding. He cares about the joy of a celebration, about sparing humble people from shame, about the simple human happiness of a village feast. The first thing he chose to do with his power was not something vast and cosmic, but something small and kind, a quiet gift to ordinary people in an ordinary moment of need. And that tells us that there is no part of our lives too small for his care, no need too humble for his attention, no ordinary trouble beneath his notice. The God who made the stars chose to begin his public work by making sure a village wedding did not run out of wine. Nothing in your life, however small, is beneath his care. And it tells us, too, something about joy and about how the Lord feels toward it. For he could have chosen any setting for his first sign, and he chose a celebration, a wedding, a feast of gladness. He chose to perform his first miracle in the service of joy, to protect and deepen the happiness of a wedding day. This was not a God who frowned on celebration, who regarded human gladness with suspicion, who came to make life narrower and grimmer. This was a God who loved a feast, who delighted in the joy of a wedding, who used his very first sign to make a celebration more joyful, not less. The wine he made was the wine of gladness, poured out to deepen the happiness of ordinary people on one of the happiest days of their lives. And in that, we see that the one at the center of our story came not to diminish our joy, but to fill it, not to empty our cups, but to fill them to overflowing with the best wine of all. There is one more layer of meaning worth drawing out, gently, before we move on, and it has to do with the timing the master of the feast remarked upon, or keeping of the best wine for last. In the world's way, as he said, the good comes first, and then the lesser, the bright beginning that fades toward disappointment. We taste this pattern everywhere. The first sweetness of a thing gives way to staleness. The early promise dims. The wine of our youth and our beginnings runs thin as the years go on. And against all of that, the Lord sets a different pattern entirely, a pattern that runs the other way, toward more rather than less, toward a joy that deepens rather than fades. With him, the best is kept for last. The story does not decline. It rises, whatever has grown thin in your life, not whatever early sweetness seems to have faded. The one who kept the best wine for the end of the feast at Cana is still in the business of saving the best for last. There is comfort in that for the later seasons of a life, for anyone who fears that their best days are behind them, that the wine has run thin and will only grow thinner. The Gospel of Cana says otherwise. It says that with God the richest joys may still be ahead, or that he delights to bring abundance out of depletion, to pour the finest wine precisely when the cups seemed destined to run dry. The wedding guests thought the celebration was winding down toward its weary end, and instead the best was yet to be poured. So it can be with us. The places where we feel we are running out may be precisely the places where the Lord is preparing to pour something better than we have ever known. He saves the best for last, and the last with him is always better than the first. And it is worth saying plainly what this first sign quietly announced about everything that would follow, for those with eyes to see it. By turning the water of purification into the wine of celebration, the Lord was showing a single quiet act, the whole shape of what he came to bring. He came to take the long human effort to be clean, to be good enough, to wash our way toward God, and to replace it with something freely given, a joy and a welcome and an abundance we could never have earned with all our washing. The old jars could only ever hold water for cleaning the outside. Make him to fill them with the wine of a gladness that changes us within. That is the gospel hidden in the miracle, the good news folded quietly into a wedding gift, that the striving is over and the feast has begun, that what we could not produce by our own effort, he gives freely and abundantly. Best wine, kept for last, poured out for all who will receive it. Let us return now to the mother, to Mary, because her part in this story is one of its most tender threads, worth following to its quiet close. She had carried the knowledge of who her son was for 30 years, holding it in her heart through all the long ordinary days of his hidden life. Now, at this wedding in Cana, she had been the one to draw it forth, the one whose simple trust had opened the door to the first sign of his glory. "Oh, they have no wine," she had said, "and then do whatever he tells you." And in those few words, she had shown a faith so complete that it became the occasion for everything that followed. She trusted him before there was any reason to, before any miracle had been seen, before the world had any idea who he was. She trusted him simply because she knew him, because she was his mother, because she had pondered all these things in her heart for a lifetime and had come to a settled and unshakable confidence in her son. And we may imagine, though the accounts do not describe it, the look that must have passed between them after the wine was made, or the quiet glance between a mother and her son who alone, among all that crowd, fully understood what had just happened. Or the guests danced on, oblivious. The master of the feast praised a bridegroom who knew nothing of the miracle. But the mother knew, and the son knew that she knew. And in that shared and silent knowledge, there must have been a whole world of meaning. Meaning of a long road now begun, of a hidden life now ending, of a mission now set irrevocably in motion. For both of them understood, in that moment, that something had changed, that her son had stepped across a threshold from which there was no going back. That the quiet years in Nazareth were over and the great and costly work had begun. For this was in its way a bittersweet moment for a mother beneath all the joy of the wedding. She had longed surely for the world to see her son for who he was, and now that beginning had come. But she also understood, perhaps better than anyone, what it would cost. To reveal his glory was to begin the journey toward his hour, the hour he had spoken of, the hour that lay at the end of a long road of growing fame and growing opposition and, finally, of suffering. The mother who had protected him, who had held him as a baby and watched him grow and kept him close through all the ordinary years, was now letting him go, releasing him into the great and terrible and beautiful work he had been born for. Her trust at Cana was not only the trust that he could turn water into wine. It was the deeper and harder trust of a mother willing to release her son into the mission that would one day break her own heart. She did it with grace, with quiet faith, stepping back, letting him begin, saying only, "Do whatever he tells you." There is something here for all of us who love, and who must sometimes release the ones we love into paths we cannot control and would not always choose. Mary shows us a love that holds on and lets go at the same time, that treasures and releases, that trusts even when trusting is costly. She did not cling. She did not try to hold her son back from the road that would lead to his hour. She trusted him and trusted the one who had sent him and released him into his calling, even knowing, in some deep place, what it would cost them both. It is one of the quietest and most profound pictures of faith in all the Gospels. This mother stepping back at a wedding, letting her son begin the work that would carry him away from her and toward the cross, and trusting through it all that it was right. And for your own heart tonight, in whatever you are facing, there is a lesson in the whole of this story that is worth carrying into sleep. It is the lesson of bringing your emptiness to him and trusting him with it. The wine had run out at Cana, the resources had failed, the need was real, and the shame was gathering, and there was nothing anyone could do. The answer was not to strive harder, or to find some clever solution, or to hide the problem and hope it went away. The answer was to bring the emptiness to him, simply and honestly, the way Mary did. They have no wine, to name the lack, to place it in his hands, and then to do whatever he said, or even when it made no sense, even when it meant filling jars with water while longing for wine. Or that is the shape of faith, and it is the shape of the way out of every emptiness. Bring him the lack, trust him with it, do what he says, and watch for the wine, for whatever has run dry in your own life, whatever resource has failed, whatever emptiness you are carrying tonight, the God who turned water into wine at Cana is the same God still. He has not changed. He still cares about the small things and the large. Or he still meets the places where we have run out. He still takes the plain water of our depleted lives and, when we bring it to him and trust him with it, makes from it a wine better than we had at the beginning. What was best with him is always yet to come. You do not have to fill your own cup. You have only to bring your emptiness to him. Trust and do whatever he tells you, and let him do the rest. He will, in his own way, in his own time, quietly, perhaps when you least expect it, he will turn your water into wine. Or it is worth pausing on how much Mary's faith cost her, and how quietly she paid it, because there is a depth here that is easy to miss in the joy of the wedding. To trust her son at Cana was, in a sense, to give him away. As long as he remained the carpenter of Nazareth, the quiet son who lived close to home, or she could keep him near, could hold on to the ordinary years. But the moment she said, "They have no wine, and do whatever he tells you," she was opening the door to his leaving, or releasing him into the public road that would carry him further and further from her side. A lesser love. Love might have kept him hidden, might have wanted to hold on to the quiet years a little longer. But Mary loved him with a love large enough to let him go, to open the door herself, to set him on the road toward his calling, even knowing where it would lead. That is among the highest and hardest forms of love there is, the love that releases the beloved into their own purpose, even at great cost to itself. And there is something in that for everyone who has ever had to release someone they love, a child growing up and away, a friend following a calling that leads elsewhere, anyone whose path must carry them beyond our keeping. Mary shows us how it can be done, not with clutching or fear, but with trust, with a quiet confidence that the one who holds them is good, that the road they are walking, however hard, is the right one. She did not cling. She blessed and released and trusted, and in doing so she became not only the mother of the Lord, but her own quiet way. The first of those who would learn to trust him fully, to bring him their need, and then to step back and let him work, or say, "Do whatever he tells you," and mean it with their whole heart. And so we come to the quiet end of tonight's story, and to the meaning the old account gives it, which gathers up everything we have seen. This, the account tells us, was the first of the signs that the teacher from Nazareth performed, there at Cana in Galilee, and by it he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. There it is, the quiet summary of an enormous moment. The first of the signs, the first time the hidden glory shone out, the first time the world caught a glimpse of who he truly was. It happened not in a temple or a palace, not before kings or crowds, but at a country wedding, in an act of quiet kindness to spare an ordinary family from shame. The new disciples, the ones who had so recently left their nets and their old lives to follow him, saw it, and something in them settled and deepened, and they believed. They had followed him on little more than his word and the pull of his presence. Now they had seen the first sign of his glory, and their faith took root. It is worth letting the gentleness of it rest on you as the day closes, the quietness of how the great work began. Or, the one who had come to change everything began by changing water into wine at a wedding, or by protecting the joy of a celebration, by meeting a humble need with quiet generosity. He did not begin with thunder, he began with kindness. He did not begin by overturning empires. He began by saving a family's gladness. And there is a whole gospel in that beginning, a whole revelation of the heart of God, who comes to us not first in overwhelming power but in tender care. Who meets us in the ordinary places of our lives, who turns the plain water of our days into the wine of unexpected joy. And remember, as you drift towards sleep, that this wedding was a beginning, the opening of the great public work, or one more turning point in the long and unfolding story we are walking together. From this quiet sign at Cana, the road would open out before him, the road of teaching and healing and gathering, a road of growing crowds and growing wonder, leading on through everything that was to come, all the way to his hour. The disciples who believed that night at the wedding would walk that whole road with him, or would see far greater signs than water turned to wine, would witness things that would change them and change the world. We have only seen the first of the signs. There are so many more nights ahead of us, so many more wonders to come. As we keep walking this long and beautiful road together toward the morning that waits at its end. So let your shoulders come down now, and let your breathing grow slow and deep, and let the day you carried into this hour begin to loosen and fall away. If something in your own life has run dry, if your own wine has failed, if you have come to the end of your own resources, with the need still pressing, and no solution in sight, then let the quiet hope of this story be the thing you hold as you fall asleep. You do not have to solve it tonight. You do not have to fill your own cup. You can bring your emptiness to the one who turns water into wine. I'll place it in his hands and trust him with it and rest. The best with him is yet to come. The story does not run down toward disappointment, but up toward a joy greater than the beginning. He is near tonight to every empty place in you. Let this be a small prayer as you settle into the quiet. For the one who turned water into wine at Cana, come to the places in me that have run dry. Where my own resources have failed, meet me with yours. Where I am empty, fill me. Where I am anxious about all that I cannot provide, teach me simply to bring it to you and trust you with it, and to do whatever you say. And let me rest tonight, in the knowledge that you care about the small things, that nothing in my life is beneath your notice, that the best is yet to come. And now may peace be upon you, real and deep, the peace of a feast where the wine never fails. The peace of one who has brought every empty cup to the one who fills them. May the worries you carried into this hour grow light. May you know, as you fall asleep, that you do not have to fill your own life by your own strength. That the one who loves you cares about your smallest needs, and that he is even now turning the plain water of your days, quietly, into something better than you had at the start. Rest now, friend. You are cared for. The best is yet to come. Sleep gently, and we will walk on together, toward the morning when you are ready. Before you let the day go, hold one last image in your mind, the image of those 6 great jars, filled to the brim, brimming with what looked like plain water and held, in secret, the finest wine. That is a picture worth carrying into sleep, because it is a picture of hope itself. What looked ordinary was extraordinary. What seemed empty of any answer was, in truth, or full of the very thing most needed. So, it may be with the places in your own life that look like plain water tonight. The ordinary troubles, the depleted resources, the needs you cannot meet. Naught brought into his hands, the plain water of our lives is never as plain as it seems. He is able to make, from the most ordinary stuff of our days, a joy we did not expect and could not have produced. The jars at Cana looked full of nothing but water. They held a wedding saving and the first shining sign of glory. So rest tonight in the quiet confidence that the one who turned water into wine has not run out of wonders. He is not finished. The story that began at a wedding is still unfolding in the world and perhaps in your own life. It is moving, all of it, toward joy. Let that be the thought that carries you down into sleep, that the best is yet to come, that the one who loves you is even now at work in the ordinary water of your days, and that you are held, night and always, by a love that delights to fill empty cups. Lost now, you are cared for, down to the smallest need, and the wine of joy in his hands never finally runs out.